And so now I'm going to hand it over to the host of today's, uh, or our special guest for today's chat, uh, Myriam Glez, and I will ask Myriam uh, to share a little bit about your athletic career, um, which is quite a journey, um, and your transitions, which I know there are two. In the sport of synchronized swimming, I don't know, Guillermo, how you say that in Espanol.
Today, this sport is named artistic swimming,
So how do you say that?
Natación
natación artística.
artística.
Nada
Oh,
sincronizado, no.
Ah, ah,
natación
no,
artística.
ya no es sincronizado, ya no se llama así, se llama natación artística.
So Miriam, you understand the question. And welcome.
Thanks, Lou. Hi, guys. Yeah, so my name is Myriam Glez. I am originally from France. I grew up in between Lyon and the French Alps, in a family of skiers, and somehow found myself in the water and doing synchronized swimming. I competed for the French national team for about 10 years. I competed in the Sydney Olympics for France. And then after the Sydney Olympics, I went to business school. Kind of took that was my first retirement from sport. Worked for a hotel company that was based all over the world. So I started working for them in Paris, and eventually moved with them to Asia. Lived in Thailand and then moved to Australia with the company and worked for them in Australia. And I resumed my career in synchronized swimming while I was in Australia. Made the national team and competed for the Australian team in the 2000 Olympics. And then after that, retired again, and lived in several different countries with my husband. He's from the US. So we have a very multinational family of three nationalities. We lived in the UK and I worked for British Sport before London 2012. And then we moved back to the US and lived in different places in the US. And I worked for USA Synchronized Swimming before Rio and Tokyo, and then left the organization and started Athletes All with other former athletes. And we are now on our way back to Australia. He's taking a job in Melbourne, so we're moving again. But I'm based in California at the moment.
Wow. So it's early. Thank you for joining us early. So you mentioned that after the first Olympics, which I believe was Sydney, right?
Yep.
2000. And then the second was Beijing 2008.
Yep.
So you had a first retirement and a second retirement. Um, what were your transitions like? And while I would think the second one would be harder, maybe, who knows?
The My first retirement came kind of as a surprise. I competed in Sydney, then got promoted to the pair. So I used to do the team, and then I eventually did the team and the pair. And we were preparing for the Athens Olympics, fighting for a medal. And the year before the Olympics, as I was in business school, my federation and my coaches actually asked me to choose either going to business school or attending the Olympics. Coming from a very niche sport with a very little professional outlook and support, and having been able to get accepted into a top business school, I decided to walk away and go to business school. So that was a big surprise for me. That ultimatum kind of like came as a shock. Was really not expecting it. Never had thought about retirement at that point. So I kind of poured myself into my studies and my work. There was I could expand on the difficulty of that transition. So I thought that was the end and pursued my professional career, took every opportunities that came up, hence the travel to Asia, Australia, and all the things I hadn't been able to do when I was actually training and competing. And then when I moved to Australia, I ended up at a competition and won the national championship, and they asked me if I wanted to compete for Australia. And at the time, I said no because I had a full-time job, I had a family, and I thought this is not possible. But then my company was extremely supportive and ended up being the one saying, no, no, you can do it. We'll support you. We'll give you some flexibility. And basically, you'll work for us, but you'll be also an ambassador for the company. So I ended up going back to synchronized swimming and training and competing for Australia at the 2008 Olympics. And so that was sort of all benefits for me at that point because I thought I would never swim again, and it happened. And so my second retirement was much different because it was prepared. I had experienced it before, but I also had a job. I had a stable family, a structure in my life, and I felt like my second Olympic cycle was the cherry on top. So my second retirement was much easier than the first one. But all that to say that these two experiences they were so contrasting in terms of the emotions and in the management of it that I could relate to athletes who said like they had a very difficult transition and those who also had a super easy kind of on their own term type of transition. And eventually it was part of the inspiration for athletes all.
And perfect segue to the next question. Um, so after the second retirement, you're in your career and you're raising your family and maybe moving around. Um, how does the inspiration and the seed that became Athlete Soul, how does it kind of germinate and take us through the birth process, so to say?
Yeah, it was a kind of a process over many years, and I probably my entire career, from athletes to administrator in the sport. As I work with different athletes and countries around the world, I saw the same challenges. And also take it back 10 years, right, where there was not as much openness around mental health. There wasn't as much vulnerability, and we were not talking as much about a holistic approach to athletes and their training and development. And so I felt, to all the athletes I talked to were sharing similar challenges in terms of their identity, in terms of feeling like they were not uh, fully understood, that the transition was a very difficult moment that wasn't supported. So that grew over time from the different meetings and encounters that I had with other athletes, and also from within the work that I did with USS Synchro. At some point, I felt um, disconnected from supporting the athletes, even though I was, in the highest position of the organization. I felt like, my role was, I was the CEO of USS Inco. My role was to support the organization and protect the organization and its mission. And often that did not align necessarily with the best interests of the athletes and definitely not necessarily their health and wellness. And that is not sustainable in the long run. If you're in it for the athletes and for supporting them, at some point, I just didn't feel like I could reconcile the two. So eventually, I left and I thought, okay, I want to do something where I'm truly committed to supporting the athletes' well-being, and whether it's in sport or after sport. And how do we help articulate everything that you learn as a person in that vehicle of sport, and how do we transfer that into life after sport and help, quite frankly, the hundreds of like extremely talented young individuals who are athletes, how do we help them, again, thrive in society and continue to make like that positive impact that you've already made as an athlete. So that's kind of the process.
And just for everybody else on the call, we're going to have this will be a discussion after I ask a few more questions. So you guys will be able to speak directly with Myriam. So have your questions at the ready. So this starts to coalesce. Myriam, talk about like when Athlete Soul started and what its mission is and how it works.
We were in the works since 2018. We officially started in 2019, right before the pandemic. We are a nonprofit organization incorporated in California, but we operate and work with athletes from all over the world. And so we offer, and as you guessed, we support athletes in that period of retirement transition. But that takes the form of a lot of different things. We work with athletes before they actually retire to help them prepare. We work with athletes during that phase of transition, right before, during, and like right after. And we also work with former athletes in how they can contribute back and help others. So we offer three main services. The first one is sort of an introduction to Athlete Soul. It's a 3 months program, where it's a group coaching that's done virtually like this. We do one session a week with a professional coach and 10 athletes and former athletes, and they go through a set curriculum, which includes things related to emotional awareness, emotional intelligence, how to work with others, identity exploration, celebration of your career, how to process and, well, first articulate and process some of the emotion related with your sport, whether you're retired or not, how to build back connection between your mind and your body, and try to rename some of the mental, emotion, and physical things that we feel as athletes that sometimes we push away because this is what we are taught to do for a very long time. And then we do a lot of exercises for identity exploration and kind of understanding your interest and passion and values outside of sport. Building a little bit of like few paths for the future. So that's our primer program. And then after that program, athletes can opt to do individualized support in the form of either one-on-one mentoring or one-on-one coaching. The biggest difference between the two being the intensity and accountability. The mentoring is more of a soft guidance for someone who would like to have someone in their corner, and perhaps someone who's already gone into an industry that they would like to go into. And the coaching is more intensive and perhaps more targeted to someone who may be more at risk during the transition, that phase of transition away from sport. And we define someone at risk with few different things, but generally it's someone who has a very sudden retirement, whether it's a career-ending injury, they've been deselected from their team, they didn't make the Olympic cut, that sort of situation where it really comes as a surprise and they may not have been prepared. And it could be also someone who is been solely focused on their sport their whole life, and maybe doesn't also have a support system around them. So these are our three main programs. Aside from these, we do a lot of we share a lot of educational resources and videos, interviews of former athletes. We have networking calls like this one. We have in-person events as well. We had a house at the Olympics in Paris. We're hoping to do something in LA as well. Yeah, and so these services are available to athletes and former athletes, to retiring athletes from all sports, so and all backgrounds. And generally, we work with athletes that are collegiate, professional, or Olympian. We have a sweet spot for those who really don't have access to any resources within their sport. We don't turn away anyone, but we happen to receive more inquiries from athletes who are from like niche Olympic sport or very small Olympic countries, or like semi-pros or lower leagues in the pro sport, or like collegiate athletes who either don't have access to resources at their school or don't want to use these resources and want to remain confidential. So a lot of the work and that we do, um, we feel like the athletes come to us principally because they want some privacy and confidentiality, and they don't really want their teammates or their coaches to know that they're doing some work with us. And that's generally for those who are still competing. That was a
And
long answer to your question.
no, it was a great answer. Um, and so for the athletes who come to you, it's free for them, yes?
Yes.
So how do you get funded through donations or other?
Yeah, so we are funded by private donation, individual donation. So we have a lot of former athletes who contribute on a regular basis for the last several years, with a recurring donation over time. We have a couple of high-profile donors, also former athletes who've invested in what we're doing. And then we host a fundraising event. We do have a few corporate supporters as well. But yeah, all privately funded, which is good for us and enables us to really be able to choose how we allocate the fund that we receive, and really listen to what the needs of the athletes are and allocate those funds based on that. We've been very careful and selective and even slow in the sense of how we've raised funds, because we want to make sure we continue to have that independence of decision, and that we're able to really support the athletes and continue to be mission driven. So for us, the status of nonprofit is very, very important. At the end of the year, we kind of measure what we've done by, like, yeah, if we have $0 in our bank account, that means we've supported as many athletes as possible. So we allocate all of our funding to supporting athletes. We actually still volunteer run. We support financially the coaches that work in a professional manner with the athletes, but we don't have other staff member other than that.
Amazing, and thank you for sharing that. And I think now, since we're an intimate group here, um, I'm going to hand over the floor to everybody else but me on the call, so you can ask your questions of Myriam. I will have some other questions unless you guys ask the ones that I'm thinking of. So unmute yourself, ask away. Actually, you know what? No. I'm going to ask one question to start. If we have Spanish speaking athletes who want to be coached, do you have Spanish speaking coaches to pair them with?
We actually do. We have a couple of Spanish coaches that we can pair them with. And we also have French speakers too. So we have a bunch of mentors and coaches for French and a similar for Spanish. It's funny, we were talking about this morning of, like, we are in the process of translating all of our programs into French and Spanish. It's gonna take a little while to, like, train everybody, but the goal is to be able to expand who we support. And we have people that we've trained in different countries. Some of our alumni who've done our program are able to support in German and in Israel, and I'm trying to remember some of the others. But yeah, so we have a very international organization. I think we've covered over 35 nationalities and counting. So yeah.
The reason I asked specifically, obviously with Guillermo on the call as well, but there is an athlete, not yet an Eco Athletes champion. She's from Argentina. She's a Paralympic uh, cyclist, Mariella, and I think she would really benefit from uh, being from the services you provide. She's a Spanish speaker through and through.
Yeah, I definitely have a few people in mind I can't think of already.
Fantastic. Okay, so now,
Lou, I think just so you know, because that's one of the key portion of what we do is really the curating matching of the mentors and the mentee, or the coaches and the athlete. And so we spend a lot of time really discovering and understanding the athletes and where they are, to be able to match them with the right mentor if they're in the mentorship program. Sometimes we go and seek mentors that are not on our roster, to be able to make sure that that person is a good fit for the mentee. And in the coaching program, we have a limited roster. We generally make a recommendation, but the athletes also has the possibility to choose. So they will usually interview several of our coaches, and then they end up picking who they want to work with, which for us is really important, because the coaching is so intensive. It needs to be a good fit. And so they do have the option to kind of choose as well. But it's the whole matching process is pretty deep.
Okay, now I will mute myself. And so uh, any of you with questions or comments, please unmute yourself and please ask away.
I'll jump in. It looked like Carlos was about to say something, but he was too slow. I just want to commend you. I think, so much of your story resonates with me. And in my experience, it probably resonates with pretty much every single athlete as they go through this tumultuous sort of journey. I was a beach volleyball player in Canada. Canada does hockey. It does not do, and at the time, we do, if it's on the ice, if it's winter, it's embraced by media and as a result, sponsors and supporters. So summer sports generally gets less support. And of course, beach volleyball, it was the beginning of the sport. It was amazing in the rest of the world. There was this well thought out, full blossomed world tour in California. I lived there as well, in California, Brazil, and Australia. The sport was magnificent. In Canada, it was still hardly recognized as a sport. It was still like, bikinis and beer on the beach. So
Plus, you also have 2 seasons in Toronto, winter and construction.
construction, that's
So
right.
it's not so beachy.
So I understand. So, and I competed on the world tour. I lived in Australia. The world tour came to my doorstep. And in about 3 days, I transitioned from being a super fan. I'd played, university. I'd played at a very solid level, but not a national level on the indoor level. And I just started to watch for 3 days, watch this event and pay more attention to the females, and realized on day 2, I'm like, hey, I'm not as good as those guys, but I could beat those guys. And by day 3, I'm like, I'm doing this. It was a hard right turn for me. So I was competing and training, finding my own support, all that stuff at a world level. Canada wasn't even on board yet. So when it became an Olympic sport, they're trying to figure out who I am. So I understand that being retired or arguing a little bit with your organization, and the understanding that a lot of our organizations aren't there for athletes first. They're there to build the sport in general. So there's a real misunderstanding about the role of the association from an athlete's point of view. So when their decisions are made that aren't supportive of athletes in general, it's pretty jarring. So, and I've lived a lot of that as well through this very fluid sport journey of mine. But I think I made the same decision. Beach volleyball in Canada, looking ahead, was a very, very small market. I was not really going to have like a big career in beach volleyball when I retire. So I did an MBA after that. And I did a very similar path as you, and made the practical choices, leave the passion behind for a little while and go and take care of yourself. Programs like this, understanding all of the jarring, that we've lived this life that's fueled by passion, and suddenly it's not there anymore. And how do you continue that, to continue to live at that energy level and surround yourself by people who have that same energy level? And it is a massive, massive challenge. So I really appreciate what you're doing. And I'd love to talk to you more about it offline, because I've spent a little time in that space talking to a lot of athletes, and they all have a very similar story, regardless of what sport they were in, how successful they were, and how much money they made. My favorite story is an NHL hockey player. He 17 seasons professionally. I mean, he's financially fine. He says, this was a couple years ago, he said to me, my wife hates me. I don't know what to do with myself. I don't have the whatever. I can't figure out where to apply this. And I'm afraid I'm going to get a divorce. And that's, you know, that there's a big miss in there, that we're missing like harnessing all this energy that athletes have. And that's, I think, what you're doing is amazing.
Yeah. And I want to react on the organization. I'm not faulting anybody for not doing what they're supposed to do, because quite frankly, like you said, a sporting organization is there to build a sport, to build teams, to look at the overall development of the sport at many different levels, to build sustainability over time and to achieve their mission. And so sometimes, yes, it does not always align with an individual's path. And so and I'm not faulting them at all. I also think that we started Athletes Soul because we didn't want to be the program that gets cut. So if you attach yourself to the Olympic movement, to a league, to a club, to a sport, if at some point there is a downturn or something happened with the organization, this type of services will be the first thing that gets cut. And we didn't want to be in that position. We want to be able to kind of control our future and not disappear when it's the most needed. So that's why we also started independently, and it's not the most traveled road. It's definitely harder, but at least we know we can survive and make our own path. And Margot, I totally agree with you. Like I've heard from so many partners, parents, family members who come to us and be like, you need to help my kids or my spouse because they can't seem to find their passion, or they don't know what to do with their energy and we can't handle them. Or like for the case of parents, often it's like, on paper, my kid seems to have been successful in everything, yet they can't handle that transition. How can I help them? So yeah, there's a lot of energy that's boiling during that transition and needs to be sort of redirected. We'll definitely connect.
Any other question or comment?
I'd like to ask Carlos specifically about the BMX, because that's a relatively new sport and you would have had to go through the growing pains as well, right?
Yeah. It's not new one, but it's new for the Olympics. It's from
Yes, that's what I mean.
2008.
And then you were in London 2012, yes?
Yeah, in 2012 and 16, and I made the preparation for to Tokyo too. It had been hard for me, all these topics, because all the things that you say, I feel the same. but it's really different way that you see. We went in Colombia. I live in Medellin. We want at one moment I want to make the same that Myriam is doing in his country, but it's hard here because we depend of the government. We have a lot of dependency of the government because the private funds is hard here. So it was really hard to try to explain them that we need this because all the athletes are doing this is hard for them to. That's why here in Colombia we have a lot of coaches, because the athletes, they don't know what to do because they finish their career and they say, oh, what can I do? The only thing that I know is train, is be a coach, is something like this, because I don't have another options. So that's why we try to explain them to try to make something different, because even they try to be a coach, but they don't have the specific studies about this. So it's harder, even harder to have more different things. So it's good to hear that you're doing this. Thank you very much for this. Is something that we need as an athlete. The question that I have is, how do you think how can we implement some here in Colombia? because I know not all person can be. I know here we can have a lot of person that will need this information or this methodology that you have. How can we try to manage something here in Colombia to make this easier for the athletes?
And I'm going to add on that. What people don't know outside of South America, Colombia is the second most populous country in South America behind Brazil. So it's a huge country with a huge sporting
Yeah.
culture. Um, even though the football team lately, James, whatever. Okay, now I go
So,
back to Miriam.
Carlos, to answer your question, I'm going to divert a little bit and then go back to it. First of all, any of your teammate and friends and yourself can participate in our program if you can do it in English. At any time, you can sign up. So we actually work with athletes from all over the world, whether they're American or not, doesn't matter. We work with a lot of foreign athletes. We work with foreign athletes that are in the US or overseas. So anybody can sign up, and our funds are not, that's the beauty of it, they're not linked just to the US. So we can allocate funds to support athletes who need it. The group that we did in the fall, I think was 90% non-American and a lot of former Olympians from Paris. And we've had refugee athletes in our programs. We've had athletes from I think at that point we had 9 different countries in that one group. So you can take advantage of it as it stands in English. The 70% of the aspects of the transition, I think, are similar between countries when it relates to the changes in your body, the mental health, the identity, the different structure, the loss of passion. Like this is very similar to all athletes around the world. The portion related to the finances and the job that's the one that's a little bit more specific to your country and how you would go at finding a job and finding your next profession. So I think we share a lot of things anyway. What we've done in the past, we've actually, I use the example of Israel, which also have their National Olympic Committee that supports certain programs and the federations. But they didn't really have those services for athletes. And when they were trying to get the Olympic Committee to do something, they reverted back to the IOC. And then it's a very slow process and it takes time to put together. And usually the IOC wants to use only companies that they partner with. So they are quite wary of outside organization. In addition, this would be only available for Olympians, but what everybody else? That's the biggest part of athletes. And those are the ones who really need help. They worked as hard and sometimes they didn't make the games. That's okay. So we see ourselves as a complement to what already exists. And we also don't mind when athletes do Athlete 365, which is the IOC program, and Athletes All. It's not one or the other. We're happy for people to use as many resources as they want. And so what we've done, for example, with Israel, we had one of the judo athlete go through our program, train with us, and then she basically refers people to our programs when they can't speak English and do it in our language. But she's also started a local sort of mentorship groups and a little community locally where they do in-person events, but they're connected with us as well. We can train, for your country, we could train someone from Colombia like yourself or someone else or others in what we're doing. You guys could help us also translate all of the material, and then we could have some things in English and some things in Spanish, and basically apply what we've created and the process to your contract, to your country. So definitely something we can talk about, and that these are our next phases. Is how do we bring this to more people around the world, and how do we do that quickly? Is also the other element. We've built this program over the last 5 years, and we've gone through maybe 3 or 4 different versions improving it as we went through the feedback of athletes and working with mental health professional. And so we know it's robust and people like it. So we're happy to transfer that and do it, expand it as much as we can. So we should have a conversation offline.
And Guillermo, did you want to say something?
Yes, no, congratulations. So for all of you to be here, that's the important thing, and to do things for the athletes and for our industry. Um, the only thing I always repeat is we need more attitude, because you can learn, you can teach, you can read, uh, but you need to have the attitude to go ahead. And this is a very important part in our region, the lack of attitude of our athletes and leaders in the sports industry to change, to pass from the sport to the industry, to the sport to the business in sports. And that's my thinking hearing you. And that's the challenge for all of us. So congratulations. I think education is the first step in all of this, but we need to move the heart of our athletes to to be committed with their future. Be not only committed with the dream of win a medal, with his future, like a person, like a family, like like each other. So that's my thinking. Leo, congratulations, Myriam, and all of you to be involved in this.
And then I have another question. This is a question that it's a shame that Ellie from Cornell had to hop off, but I'm asking this on behalf of her and something like 20 eco athletes champions who are graduating next month uh, from their from college and university, and I think one of them is going to try to play pro basketball abroad. Everybody else, their athletics career either ended in the fall semester or just ended for a couple last week, just like that, or will be ending because they are rowers like Ellie, and rowing is a spring sport that goes all the way into June, even after graduation, if they go deep into the NCAA rowing national championships. Um, so I'm asking on behalf of them, you know, what can they expect when they've been in a team, mostly team sport, their whole life at an elite level, doing that every day, and then boom.
Yeah, and it's not just the sport. They're obviously graduating from university as well. So you have the double slam of finishing college and finishing your career all at once. It's the period of unless they have something that they already have planned for jobs, but generally it's pretty uncertain, very new, lots of confusion and anxiety. And I think the end of the sport career add to that, right? There's going to be uh, generally much less exercise. For some of them, nothing, because they were looking forward to this for so many years. And so in the immediate after the end of your sport, I think the immediate challenge is really physical and chemical. Less endorphin, less adrenaline, less of all the hormones that make you feel good, less sun, less exercise, and that has a big impact on your life the first few months. So trying to like keep moving is important. Keep seeing some sunshine or being outside, uh, paying attention to good nutrition, even if you're not playing anymore. I think these are the biggest points in the immediate transition. Finding ways to either stay in touch with your community or build a new community or reconnect with family, to have some socialization around you, because that was a big part of what you did if you were in a team sport or any kind of sport for the last 25 years. These are the kind of the two elements we see a lot as challenges. Um, and then being afraid not to try to do a lot of different new things, dipping your toes in a lot of different things and trying out to see what sticks, and what you may want to continue to do or do as a new thing, take on. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to commit to I'm sharing this with everybody, all the champions, and then I will write a separate email to all of the graduating seniors specifically, sharing this with them again and inviting them to reach out to you. And if it's okay, I would like to share your email
Yeah.
or um and so that um and
And I think, Lou, a big message for everybody, um, it's okay not to have it all together. It's totally fine. Like, this is hard. Um, it's hard for everybody, even those who have not spoken about it publicly. Nobody has it together, and it just takes a little time. But acknowledging it's okay that it's going to be difficult, for a little bit, but it will get better. And there's not one path to do things, so choose whatever you want to do. It's fine.
what's really interesting, um so just in talking to our graduating seniors and those who graduated last year, it's a mix, right? Some of them go on to grad school right away. So they at least have the graduate school camaraderie. And so it's different clearly than undergraduate, but it's some of that. Some are like trying to get jobs. Some already have landed jobs, but that has transition, as you mentioned. And then some, and this is not only graduates, but some of our champions, now these are the retired athletes who had pro careers or Olympic careers and they're in their 30s, they like they their Olympic dream is over and then they start a new sport. Like and they get to an elite level, maybe not Olympic level, but they start like uh, Margot, you should know of Liana Carrière, the Canadian. She was elite in pole vault. Just she came in fourth at one Olympic trials, which was one off getting to the Olympics. She got pissed off. She retired, and then she decides she's going to become an endurance athlete. And so now she's an Ironwoman triathlete. And in 2026, she's going to ride a bike from the North Slope of Alaska to the southern tip of South America to raise awareness of climate change's impacts on bird populations. Um, and then someone that Guillermo and Carlos Mario know, uh, Camila Pirelli, who is also known as La Pantera Guarani, which is the Guarani panther, the Guarani being the indigenous people of her native Paraguay. She was an Olympian in hurdles and world class in, wait a minute, heptathlon, retired. She's like, okay, I'm done. She's telling me, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, like not sports. And now she's taking up triathlon already. Like, so it seems like they go to triathlon actually now that
I think that's pretty common. Athletes need to move.
Yeah.
When you do this for many, many years, you may take a few years break when you retire, but you know that this sort of energy you'll have to like direct it somewhere at some point. So
Yeah.
I think movement is a recurring thing for former athletes in some way or another.
Well,
Yes.
I haven't shared this with you yet, but I am currently writing a book that really is trying to explore that. I want to call it the gap between skill building and what the athlete experience and everything that we learn in there and translating it to the career section of this. Because I've worked for organizations that hire coaches to come in and teach everybody communication and accountability and time management. And I'm just looking around going, oh, you've got to be kidding me. There's this huge gap in what we already know. It's built into our DNA, but we don't know how to necessarily translate it into corporate language. So a part of this, I'm calling my book, a part of it is, it's really a leadership, looking at the different, a series of leadership principles, but translating the sports skills into those and trying to develop some activities to bridge those gaps, if you will. But that the misunderstanding, you talked about that at the beginning, the feeling misunderstood, to me is it's a language thing. It's an experience. Athletes have probably had experiences that most people probably haven't with global travel. But actually trying to figure out, oh, I can jump serve, but how does that help me? I want to be an accountant. Well, what it means is that I can look at a field of play and I can assess, I can gather information and giving them language to take the skills that they have and apply them more broadly. And so there's a little bit of that in there. So I'm excited to talk to you more about what you're doing.
And Miriam, just on that, because I think this tees up a really nice segue, a, a great example of what Myriam and Athlete Soul has done is with a woman who is also an Eco Athletes champion, uh, uh, Nikita, she goes by Nikki Uberoy, and who played tennis at Brown University, and then professionally for 7, 8 years, and then I'll hand it over to Myriam to pick up the story from there.
Yeah, because Margot, this is some of the work that we do with the athletes in our program and also with our interns. We take a lot of interns that are athletes and they'll go through our programs while they're interning, but we also spend time really articulating what their strengths are as athletes and trying to be very specific and changing that language and narrative so that they can relate to an HR person or an employer or a manager. And that's what we did with Nikki. She came to us when she was injured. She did an internship. We did a lot of work together. It was really about building that confidence that you actually know a lot of things and you just lacking the language to pass that on to people. Once you have that language, it's like super easy to translate. She eventually went back to tennis and then decided to retire because she was ready. And so, yes, this definitely really needed. I need to talk to you about it because I have also a few other people that are writing about this that you can connect with. And it's definitely, I experienced it in my first job where I felt I felt misunderstood, but I also didn't have the knowledge to how to communicate appropriately with my manager, and I was too intense. And I've heard that from so many athletes, like you go into these new jobs, you're so passionate, you want to make strides, you feel like you're behind, so you're working even harder. And I think this is often it's too hard for the corporate environment. Too hardcore, the language is too strong, so you need to like you can't talk to a colleague like you do with your teammates. You can't be as straightforward. Not everybody has the same level of commitment and
That's
dedication
right.
in the workplace than you do in sports.
And there's a real difference interacting with your manager and interacting with your sport coach. We think of the language that you're given back. It's specific and it's for you and it's very detailed. And it
Yes.
is about your performance alone. Whereas in
And
the
it's very
corporate side,
and it's very direct,
yes,
which in the corporate world is it's a
not.
no-go.
Even understanding how you're going to get feedback and what to do with it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think the Nikki story is a perfect kind of distillation of that because she played pro for quite some time, and then she all of a sudden wants to get a job in the non-sports world, and she thinks that she doesn't have any skills, she doesn't have any
She thought she
value,
was so behind.
she's behind,
Right.
and you know, and she goes to Athlete Soul, and from Athlete Soul, she comes to us because she and well, I'll share the story. Miriam, you fill in where I miss, but Nikki goes to Athlete Soul, and wait, you don't have skills? You were like a CEO of
Of your
a
own
CEO of
company.
a business. You overcome obstacles, both you have to deal with injuries, physios, you have to raise money, sponsors, you're selling yourself. You also have to deal with obstacles like the person on the other side of the net who has a wicked forehand with severe topspin. How do you deal with that? And then keeping moving forward and engaging with all different stakeholders. I'm like, you're
And Lou, you're nailing it where it was really showing her you're the CEO of your company. These are the words you need to compare what you do. Like your competitors are like the person in front of you in the game is your competitor in the market. At the beginning of the year, this is your budget. Your goal is your annual goal, your annual revenue goal, and this is the strategy you put in place to achieve that. Like once we put wording that are used in the workplace on the things she was doing, I said, what's your hiring policy? Your hiring policy is you're choosing your coach, your physio, and this. You have a hiring policy. You know what the criteria are and how you do that. So you're really managing a small company, and you've done all these skills, and like I have a target at 3 months, and I'm getting into my board meeting, and it's myself and my team, and I haven't reached my target. I have to readjust. This is exactly what companies do. And so I think once she started realizing, oh, the life is of a company is what I do on a yearly basis, it really switched how to look at things in her mind.
and
In that way.
and so now, in case you're wondering what the after is, um, so Nikki transitioned and now works at the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, or NASM, in Washington, D.C. And she is, for lack of a better term, she is a climate advocate within the academies, and she brings a climate focus and climate programming and climate education to those three disciplines: uh, um, science, engineering, medicine, and she is thriving there. Like she has the wicked forehand with topspin. So, any other questions or comments? Because we're coming up on time. Um, from Carlos Mario or Margot.
Yes, Marian, do you think it's possible to think to have maybe in future a group of Latin American group of to start talking about this with? I think it's important to try this at least start to thinking about this um, what we're doing now. But I think we can if we have a group that is talking Spanish. I think we can start doing good things here, and I can try to help them to the
Yeah,
government
I think
to see
you
this
and
as
I,
something important.
let's connect at a separate time to chat like how we could approach that, and we can teach you guys our program and how to use it. Like there could be a few of you that are trained in what we do, and then you can expand from there. So yeah, let's definitely chat offline. I'll get your contact from Lou, and then I'll reach out.
Perfect.
Yeah. You're on mute.
Sorry. I'm going to put Miriam's email in the chat. And Margot, anything from you to close?
No, I'm excited by what you're doing. I love that you're seeing some some success in it. I think your funding model is really what's driving it. I was with an organization that it started as a for-profit, so that was really the kicker. How do you charge an athlete for this? So you have to find players associations or sponsors. So that was a real, that's really why it slowed down. But the content, the desire, the intensity, the recognition that there's a massive need for this, there's that's well known as far as I can see. That's very well recognized. So I love that you've taken a different approach to it and it's working.
Yes.
The funding is not simple. So yeah, we're navigating that, but it's been working so far.
Tell me, I know the feeling. And I just want to say for me and for eco athletes, because Myriam is an eco athletes champion and passionate about climate action. And she actually had myself and two of our champions couple months back, Lou Mial, who was a runner at Rutgers and now is at New York Roadrunners in sustainability, and Riley Barr, also a runner, but was at Florida State and now works in sports sustainability consulting with Blue Strike Environmental. So we spoke to the athlete soul community, and I can see more collaborations, Myriam, as the green sports job world grows, because it is growing despite the headwinds that we face here in this country since the results of the election. Um, that is, if if anything, and this is just my observation, it's not a statistically significant sample size, but I've seen more interest from champions to go into this field, like as a reaction to, in part, the headwinds. So there's more interest now, and it is growing. So we look to work with you even as you move further away.
I'm on a travel all the time, so sadly, I'm not I won't be moving too far away.
All right. Well,
I'll be involved.
Myriam, thank you, and thank you guys, Margot and Carlos Mario, for your questions, your interest. We will share with the Eco Athletes Champions community one of the two videos, and then we will also share, Myriam, your PowerPoint deck, and then we will also write to the student athlete champions who are graduating this year separately.
Right.
But thank you so much.
Thank you, Lou, for having me. Thank you.
Oh.
And nice to meet you, Margot, Carl.